Hello and welcome to another episode of Luthier Quick Tips. Today I'm going to do a quick review of a digital string height gauge from Luthier Mercantile International. Now, full disclosure, when I purchased this, I wasn't necessarily looking for a digital string height gauge. In the past, I've always used either feeler gauges or one of these string action gauges. However, when I placed my order with Luthier Mercantile International for some other items, I decided I would maximize my shipping and add in another item. And so I chose one of these digital string height gauges, mainly because the price was right. If you look at a lot of different string height gauges that are out there, and you can find analog ones as well as digital. I know StewMac has one, and I think there are some knockoffs on eBay that are fairly cheap. But this one came in at right around $45 to $50, not including shipping, which I thought was pretty affordable. So I figured let's give this a try and see if there's an advantage to using one of these measurement tools as opposed to one of these measurement tools. However, before I do this, I have a favor that I'd like to ask of you, the viewer, especially those of you who either make guitars or do guitar repair work, or maybe you're a guitarist who's actively involved in the maintenance and setup of your guitar. Either way, what I'd like to know is what you consider to be ideal string action for a guitar. And this is a measurement that you would take probably at both the 1st fret as well as around the 12th to 17th fret. And that's, string action, as you know, is the distance between the bottom of the string and the top of the frets. And primarily what we're interested in is the action on the low E and the high E string. We have to assume that all the other strings would follow the radius. So mainly just that low E and high E string, what kind of action you're looking for when you set up your guitars. And you can present that in either millimeters or decimal inches or fraction inches, whichever you tend to work with and feel comfortable with. Put your preference in the comments down below. And what I'll do is I'll keep track of that. And maybe in a future episode, we can revisit that and kind of explore the range of action settings that people prefer. And it might also help if you would add in a reason why you prefer that, that type of action. Is it because you prefer a guitar that has that action when you play? Or is it because you are setting up guitars for other people, other customers? And that would be a useful bit of information. I think it'll be kind of interesting. So at any rate, let's take a look at this digital string height gauge from Luthier Mercantile International. Now, typically, as I've said before, when I would check the action, I would use my feeler gauges, and I would just check to see what kind of space I would have between the top of the 1st fret and the bottom of the low E and the high E strings. And then usually I would grab a radius gauge and check to make sure that the other strings were touching the bottom of that radius gauge. I've also used one of these string action gauges where you can set it down and visually look to see where the bottom of the string is in relation to the marks, the graduated marks along the edge. The problem with feeler gauges is if you're not careful and your eyesight isn't really, a good 20/20, it can be difficult to get an accurate reading because you can push a gauge that's slightly too thick under the string without realizing that you're actually raising the string up. And so you don't get an accurate reading. The other problem is, like with one of these string action gauges, is you need really good eyesight to be able to see where the bottom of the string is in relation to those graduated marks. So I've always thought it'd be kind of cool to have one of these digital string action gauges so that I could actually get a digital number that would tell me exactly what the measurement is. And with this particular gauge, you can select either decimal millimeters as your unit, or you can select inches as either decimals or fractions. And I prefer inches in decimals. So that's what I've got mine set for. But the way it works is pretty simple. You've got this, it's a plunger basically, and you place the gauge onto the fretboard so that the plunger is resting on top of the string directly over the fret where you're taking your measurement. So here we're at the first fret. So what I'll do is I'll place that plunger right on top of the string and then place the gauge down onto the fretboard so that it's over that first fret. Then I'll press 0 to zero out the measurement, and then I'll press down the plunger and I'll press hold, and that will lock in that measurement that it just took. So I can look at this and I can see what my measurement, and in this case it's 0.030, which is a little bit high, so I know I need to slightly deepen that slot in order to bring the string down a little bit. I can also take the measurement further up at like the 12th fret. So I'll just repeat that same process. I'll simply place the plunger right on top of the string, set the gauge down onto the fretboard so it's straddling the 12th fret, press 0, press down the plunger, press hold, and I'm at 0.054, which is pretty close to what I would want for this guitar. Now I can do that to every single string across the 12th fret, and I can do that really quickly. Now the one thing I did notice with this gauge when I first started to use it, especially on the lighter gauge strings like the G, B, and A, when I place that plunger directly on top of the string, directly over the fret, there is a slight amount of deflection. This plunger has a little bit of weight to it, so it does press down on the string. That's going to cause an inaccurate reading. But what I've ended up doing is what you should be doing when it comes to measuring string height, and that is I place the guitar in this orientation. Because when the guitar is laying down flat like this, the weight of your tuner's headstock and this end of the neck will cause a very slight deflection in the shape of the neck, which can affect your string action anyways. Now we're talking tiny, tiny amounts, and it really does depend on how bulky your headstock and how heavy the tuners are, but they will pull it down just ever so slightly. When you place it into this position to measure the string height, you're in a position that's more accurately what you would be holding the guitar if you were playing it. And that also helps this gauge work more accurately, because when it's being held like this, that plunger has weight that's bearing down on the string. When it's flat like this, there's no weight on the string, so it won't deflect it. So it's just a simple matter of placing the gauge over the fret, again zeroing out the reading, and then pressing the string down to the fret, hitting hold, and then you've got your measurement. It's a little bit easier also to use the gauge when the guitar is in this position. You can read it much more accurately. So I have to say that I think that this string action gauge from Luthier Mercantile International is a really cool tool, and I intend to use this from now on when it comes to measuring my string action, because I don't have to rely on my 58-year-old eyes to see these incredibly difficult to see and read graduations or the feeler gauges that I normally have used in the past. This gives me an accurate number, and it does it very, very quickly, so I can do all the strings across each fret that I need to test. And I know pretty clearly what type of adjustments I need to make very quickly. So there you have it. The Luthier Mercantile International digital string height gauge. It gets a thumbs up from Highline Guitars. I'll put a link in the description below. Hopefully you found this video to be useful, and if so, please give me a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you don't already subscribe. If you want to show some support to my channel, head over to eguitarplans.com, link in the description below, and purchase a guitar plan or a plan for tools. And whether or not you're going to actually make the plan that you purchase, just know that your purchase helps to support this channel. So until the next episode, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you soon.